All right, so we'll first start talking about the Game Boy itself, the original Game Boy. So it is also known as the DMG, or the dot matrix graphic. It's kind of how the pixels are interpreted on the screen. So this is the original one that would have came out in 1989. It is a beast. It is a big Game Boy. It takes 4 AA batteries. You've got volume, contrast on this side here, and then this is your Game Boy here. 2 face buttons, your A and your B, start, select, and your D-pad. So that's all you had for buttons. Also, you had your DC output to plug into the wall. You've got your spot for your link cable to battle your friends 2-player or to trade Pokemon back and forth. Switch on top, which is kind of cool because this little switch here, when you slide it over, when you turn it on, this little latch comes out, and I'll show you after we get into the games. The way that they're cut out, it was to help prevent them from coming out. They were worried about, you know, kids pulling them out or them falling out by accident or whatnot. So that little lock kind of kept those in place. And, you know, these are fairly easy to find. The only disadvantage of these is there's no backlight to these. So when you guys run them, it's a very off color of green and a little bit of black. So the screens are the most phenomenal aspect of the Game Boy. So they do have mods that you can take them apart and add a backlight to them, which helps out a little bit because it'll help you be able to see. If not, they do sell, I mean, they're probably a little bit harder to find now, but it's a little piece that clips on over top. And it's a magnifying glass with 2 lights that are built in to kind of help you see this a little bit better. I just found that it was a little bit annoying having it on there because you're like trying to look through the magnifying glass and you had your lights on there and they weren't really positioned the best. But if you're going for the original feel for a Game Boy, this is the one that you're going to be looking for here. But again, like, you know, I've got fairly large hands and this thing fits still to this day very well into my hands. I really enjoy it. Now, they did make a Game Boy Pocket, which I don't have, but they did make a Game Boy Pocket that took 2 AAA batteries, so it was a lot thinner, and the screen was a little bit better. Japan actually got an exclusive Game Boy Light, so it was a backlight that was built into the Pocket, or a front light, I should say. So it made it easier playing the game at night or in hard to see areas. The Pocket, to mention, also is the same kind of screen. It doesn't have any kind of color or anything like that, so it's still kind of that like black and white graphic to them. So that is your original. We'll put that off to the side. So then once they had the original, they had the Game Boy Pocket. Then they decided, like, hey, you know what? Maybe people want to see the games in color. So here you've got your Game Boy Color. Now, if some of you guys actually have a Game Boy Color, you're kind of like, why does this look different? So this is one of the original Kiwi Lime Game Boy Colors I have. I actually just modded it. I just swapped out the buttons. I put a Pokemon cover protector on the screen, but it's actually glass, so it actually looks a little nicer. I'm a real fan of the glass ones. I also, if we can see on the camera, I've added a light, so you can kind of see it in there. See a little bit more on the sides. So it's actually a front light from a Game Boy Advanced SP. Took it apart, took that carefully, and then laid it down in here. At nighttime, you can kind of see the light pouring through here because it's a fairly big strip. It like just fits inside the shell. It's probably one of my favorite mods to have done to a Game Boy because now it gives me light and I'm able to play all of my favorites in the dark, and I don't need to carry anything else with me, any other accessories, which I'll show you guys what a worm light looks like very soon. So same thing, your A, your B, your D-pad, start, select. You had your on and off switch. This one just has volume, doesn't have contrast, it does it automatically for you. And the expansion port for your to play 2-player with your link cable, trade Pokemon back and forth. But do note that they are different. So you can get the ones that are for the original Game Boy that are a little bit bigger, and see if I can zoom that in there. So you got these ones here. It's a little bit bigger than this one. They kept this port all the way into the Game Boy Advance, actually. So they was kind of one and done with the original. Then they went with the smaller one here. It also takes 2 battery cover. is missing that piece. It makes it a little hard to get out. There we go. Takes 2 AA's. They went back to the AA's. Obviously, the screen taking a little bit more power, helping a little bit more with battery life because the AA's with the pockets apparently you'd burn through them fairly quickly. I had a few friends that had them, but it still does have your headphone jack, and it still has a spot for the DC adapter that plug into the wall. Now, it didn't ever come with one. It was one of those things you just get on your on the side. One thing I would recommend for Game Boys, either, whichever iteration you get, is get yourself a good pair of rechargeable batteries. That will save you from having to chuck batteries out all the time. I don't have any in here right now, but I've got a couple of sets that I will use if I'm going to be gaming for a long period of time. That way I'm not having to just keep burning through batteries, because they do use batteries fairly quickly. So, a couple of accessories to come with it. So, as we talked about the DC wall adapters, but we also talked about a link cable. So the link cable here, this one here is, this came up with like the first part of the Game Boy Color's life. So you've got your Game Boy Color here, your Game Boy, and your Game Boy. So these ones were made, and you got another Game Boy over here. So these ones were made so that if you had either or, they were usually a bundle pack. Because maybe, you know what, you had a friend that had an original one. You had your color, so you want to be able to plug your color, and then you want to be able to plug in your original, and then voila, you can transfer data in between. You can play 2-player, you transfer Pokemon. That's really what I use the link cable the most for, was transferring Pokemon, because a lot of the friends that I had either didn't have it, or I just didn't trust they would steal my Pokemon. So I would just use the link cable myself, and these usually came with an accessory pack or whatnot. But these ones are really good, because then you don't have to find one or the other. They've got both. They do both. Your Game Boy and your Game Boy Color. This will even work for Game Boy Advance as well. So yeah, link cable is a must. Another one, if you don't have a backlight on your Game Boy Color, is a worm light. So the worm light is great, but it does suck the batteries from your Game Boy. It doesn't. This is all it is it just plugs into the expansion port on the side here, where you would put your link cable in, and it's just powered by the. So as you can see, it's really bright. So I use this forever. This is one of my original ones. I've got a couple of them now. I've used this thing. This is like, I swear by using the worm light. If you don't have a Game Boy that has a better screen, a backlit screen, if you've modded it at all, the worm light, super bright. It's very convenient. You can stretch it and bend it whichever way you want to do it to make it best visible for you when you're playing your game. So, it's unfortunate they didn't have one of these for the original Game Boy, because that would have been really, really cool. But I definitely recommend it. It's less cumbersome than the magnifying glass that would go on top, because again, it goes over the screen and it has the lights on either side, where this you can kind of like, I find that on the sides it doesn't work, but sometimes you just angle it towards the top when you're looking down, so you can have the light coming down this way. So worm light, Game Boy Color is a must. Fun fact about these, because they use the same adapter as the Game Boy Advance, except that it's flipped, I had a worm light that I just turned, the adapter part in my original Game Boy Advance, and I was able to use the worm light, because again, it had something similar to it, but I just like the worm light, just flexible, and again, it's just, there's no bulk to it. It's literally just your light, and there's nothing else to it. So, keeping on accessories, everybody's favorite, and I hate that they don't make them anymore, Game Sharks. So, Game Sharks on the Game Boy are a little bit finicky, and I say that because they need to go into the back, and then you need to then take a game, and that game goes on the side there. So it's very susceptible to any pressing around the sides or whatnot. And then we'll sometimes break the connection with the Game Shark. So typically, like when I hold it, it's very like delicate around it. Game Sharks I really only used for Pokemon, just to get different kinds of Pokemon in, so you didn't have to trade or whatnot. Or some games if I couldn't get through, just to get some extra lives. But Game Sharks, relatively cheap, and you don't need any special software with them. These are all just, you add in the cheats, and then you can run it two different ones here. This was like for the original Game Boy, and this one has for your Game Boy Color and your Game Boy Pocket. So it's got games for built in for your Game Boy Color and stuff. So they got a lot of cheats already built in. But if they don't have it, just type it in online. You'll be able to find it, and then it's like a 16-digit code. You punch that in, and then you're good to go. You're good to start cheating at your game. So next up, we're going to be talking about the games. My recommendation on games, but first, just a couple of variants on cartridges, because you'll see different colors and whatnot. So this one here is your standard Game Boy here, your standard Game Boy game. So again, remember when I said that notch, that the original Game Boy would, once you put it in, hit the switch over. So you see right there, it prevents it from getting pulled up through the thing. I mean, obviously you could force it, but why would you want to force it? Right? Turn it off, take it out. So they came out and they were gray. They did start getting into color cartridges when they came out with Pokemon. So you've got the color cartridge, still a Game Boy game. Now they do have games that are enhanced for Game Boy Color, like the Pokemon trading card game. So you'll see this one here is a black cartridge. So this one would work still in your original Game Boy. That's why there's still the notch, but it also work in your Game Boy Color as well. And then it would give you, it would have the built-in color set already. So it wasn't something that it was just, trying to add in. So it was made specifically to play on both. But then later in the Game Boy life, you started to get to these kind of cartridges here. So you can see that it's raised as opposed to an indent that you have here. See that? So it's raised up, so it kind of helps show you there, and there's actually no notch. So these ones can only be played in a Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance, but cannot be played in the original Game Boy because it doesn't have the notch for you to be able to slide over. There's just more stuff inside just to specifically play on Game Boy Colors. So there's more colors and whatnot and some more info that's in there. So now we've talked about the variations on cartridges for the Game Boy. Let us get into some of my recommendations. So if you guys have been following my channel, you guys know that I am a giant Legend of Zelda fan. I love Legend of Zelda. Link's Awakening is no other from that. I love anything and everything that is Legend of Zelda. So there's actually two variations of this. So they did come out with Link's Awakening originally in the gray cartridge. This one is the DX. So this one has another dungeon they've added in, the color dungeon. So it was made to be specifically played in a Game Boy Color. But if you didn't have that version, you could still just play. If you didn't have a Game Boy Color, you could still play this in the original Game Boy, but you could not use it to get through the last color dungeon because everything is color coded. So Legend of Zelda: A Link's Awakening is a very cool game, and they're also coming out with it on the Switch, which I can't wait for. I can't wait to play through that game and give a review on it because it looks fantastic. Next up, we've got Kirby. So one thing I love about Nintendo is their first-party games. So Kirby's Dreamland, awesome game. I don't know why they chose to make him white on the cover of the game when he's pink, but they did. It's just kind of like Kirby's Dreamland or Kirby Superstar that you have for Super Nintendo. Cool little platformer. Yeah, Kirby. And then puzzle game. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because I think it's Dandelion, Opus, I don't know. It's kind of like a Tetris, but you have specific blocks that have to fit into like a square, and then you have to like rotate them and flip them and whatnot and to make it go in there. It's a cool little game. I've had it for years. My cousin actually gave it to me, and it's just one of those like oddly addictive puzzle games that I just don't mind taking over once in a while and putting an hour or so into. So I recommend that one if you are a puzzle buff like I am. So speaking of puzzles and speaking of Tetris and whatnot is Dr. Mario. Dr. Mario is another one where you've got to use the pills to get rid of the viruses. I don't know if they would make a game specifically like this anymore, but yeah, it's a cool little quirky game, kind of Nintendo's answer and Mario's answer to Tetris in a way. So it's a very cool game. You can play it with two players. I don't know how well it'll show up on the camera here, if I can get it to focus. Maybe not. No. But in the corner of the game here, you can see that it has, what it is actually just two people face to face. So it shows that it's a two-player game. So you have, next up is Metroid 2, Return of Samus. I am a huge Metroid fan. This one plays pretty much like the NES one does, so there's no map. The sub weapons you get are, just in there. There's no like real, pause menu with everything that you can kind of collect it, but cool little game. Get lost very easily in this game, but it's an awesome one. And they did make a remastered HD version for the 3DS, which is a fantastic game. I couldn't highly recommend it, but I wouldn't have known about it if I didn't play the original. So really cool game, especially if you're into those kind of like Metroidvania kind of titles where you kind of got to go around and find certain items to unlock certain areas. Wheel of Fortune, because when I was a kid, it was a cheap game, and kids love cheap games. So I got Wheel of Fortune. Again, it's never one of those that I would play for hours on end, but just kind of cool to play it when I was getting bored of Mario or getting frustrated, and I would pop this in and try to guess the words that were there. So that's another cool one. I am also a big fan of Castlevania. Less of the action style Castlevanias and more of the later iterations in the Game Boy Advance or the PS1 with Symphony of the Night, the Metroidvania style games. The action adventure ones, I find the jumping just drives me nuts in these games, but they're still really cool games to have. I don't get very far, but I do love playing them. I love the music. I think Castlevania always nails music in their games. It just really sets the tone and the atmosphere of the game and where you are in trying to attack Dracula. So there's both of them here. Actually, this is the one here that I was able to save that had a bunch of cola on it. If you guys watched my last video on, or one of my last videos on cleaning cartridges, this is actually the one that I saved. I was really surprised I was able to save it, actually. So next up, Alleyway, cool little game. The ball comes down. You are Mario in this little ship, and then you basically bounce the ball back and forth to get rid of all of the blocks that are there. Again, cool little puzzle games. They had a lot of these for the Game Boy, and again, it's just cool just to be able to jump in and just do something a little bit different. So Alleyway, highly recommend it. What is a Nintendo console without Super Mario? We've got Super Mario Land. Plays a bit different than it did for, what I was used to with Super Mario Bros. 3. Still a cool little game. Graphics aren't fantastic in these games, so that is one thing to note, that they are not like the Game Boy Advance, where the graphics kept up over the years. These ones are fairly basic. I enjoy it because I've played them for years, so I've got that nostalgia factor, but some people that may be just getting into Game Boy, and not really sure exactly how they look, I'll fire this one in just to kind of give you guys an idea. And it's giving me no connection. Nope. All right, let's give this a shot. 1 second. All right, there we go. So you can see, it does look good. It is not a terrible looking game in the slightest, but I mean, it's not, it definitely hasn't held up to some of the other older games, like even some of the old NES games. So it looks good on the Game Boy Color. On the original Game Boy, it doesn't look as nice anymore, but still a very cool game, very cool Mario game. I love me some Mario. Just really anything first party Nintendo. My very first game, Batman the Animated Series. I love this game. Let's get this to focus. There we go. So I absolutely love this game. Hard as all hell to play, especially when I was a kid. A little bit easier nowadays, but especially not really knowing what to do. But it was just really cool having a Batman game. And, I remember being a little kid when I got this, and Batman was still all the rage. So it was really cool to have a game that I could play Batman, and then I would be able to watch the show on TV. Super cool. Fan of Batman. Highly recommend this one. They've made some bad Batman games in the past. This one is not necessarily one of them. It's not Arkham Asylum or anything like that, but it's a cool little game, especially with the characters from the animated series. So that brings me up to the franchise that really kept me in playing Game Boy is Pokemon. Got a little bit of everything here. So we've got the original 2. So my original copy actually of Pokemon Red here. and it still works. It still saves, which is like mind-boggling to me that it still saves. Most people's batteries have died. Mine has not, surprisingly, and I've actually was able to buy an attachment for the computer, so I was able to pull the save data off there. So just in case it ever dies, I've always got that. So it's just really cool to was able to do that. So your original 3 came out originally with blue and red. In Japan, they didn't get blue; they got green. So green is basically based off of blue with a couple of minor tweaks. Then they came out with Special Edition Pikachu. So this is the one that followed more of the anime. So Pikachu was your first Pokemon instead of Venusaur, Blastoise, or Charizard that you can get. So you would start off with Pikachu and it followed more of the anime. This is actually what the Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee games are made off of, as the Special Edition, which is kind of cool. So it went from those 3 then to the next 3, which was Silver, Gold, and Crystal. Again, the part 2 in the franchise of Pokemon was Gold and Silver, and then Crystal, they did change a few things in there. And again, it's Game Boy Color exclusive, so keep an eye out for these. I love these games. They're definitely not getting any cheaper, unfortunately. People just know what they're worth, and a lot of people don't want to get rid of them. So when they do, it's usually a fairly hefty price in comparison to some of the other games that you can find out there. Next up, Pokemon trading card game. It's a cool little game. I collected the cards as a kid, but I never actually like played them because I always just wanted to keep them in my binder. So getting the game was actually really cool. I actually beat through the entire game. It was really fun. It's different, a lot different than playing, the RPG, the turn-based RPG of Pokemon, just to playing cards. And then, it was a limited set of cards. So it was a limited amount of Pokemon that were in there, but still an overall really fun game. If you're really a fan of Pokemon and a fan of the trading card game, the Game Boy game is awesome. Last 2, these are kind of the side games of Pokemon Puzzle Challenge. So I love Tetris Attacks for Super Nintendo, and I have been obsessed with that game since I first started playing it. I remember me and my cousin used to have this like little rivalry of like who was better at Tetris Attack. Spoiler alert, it was me. And when they came out with it for the Game Boy, I was like, that's amazing. And the fact that it was Pokemon was even cooler. So you go around collecting Pokemon when you beat certain stages in there. And again, like if you're a fan of Tetris Attack, it's kind of what Bejeweled, kind of took some of their gameplay from, was the Tetris Attack style. Pokemon Puzzle Challenge is wicked. I love this game. Last up for games and game recommendations, Pokemon Pinball. So I actually didn't talk about this variation of cartridge because they do have a couple of these like this. So this is Pokemon Pinball. It is pinball, but with Pokemon. It's a really fun game. I actually only recently just got all the way to the end with this and got to Mewtwo and was able to catch it. So I, for years, never actually got to get through the whole thing. So it was kind of cool to be able to pick it up again and get all the way through and set a new high score. But I see you guys are probably like, why does it look so much bigger than this one? It even has the notch in the back so you can play it. But if you see that word right there, it says, oh no, it's not going to do it. All right, it says rumble. So this little thing here had built-in rumble because Nintendo loves to make things rumble, which I am not mad at. That's why I love the N64 so much. I can't actually play it without having the rumble pack in there. So flip open this little spot right here. You got a spot for 1 AAA battery. Fire that in there, and when you play the game, it will rumble. You can turn the rumble off if you don't want to play with it. It is something you can turn off, or just don't put a battery in it, and it won't rumble. But they actually did the same thing for Perfect Dark as well. So that was kind of cool, is having these bigger cartridges that had the rumble built in. So Nintendo was just always on the cutting edge of knowing what they wanted their consoles to do, and little different things, different tweaks of how to get you more immersed into the game. And rumble is definitely one of those. So that is my my buying guide. Some things to look for, guys, when you are going out in the wild looking for your Game Boys, making sure you're finding some games with them. What do the different color cartridges mean? Is mine color only? What the heck is a Wormlight, and why do I want it so badly? And I need a cable to battle my friends, because guys, this is before you could go online You know, there's no Wi-Fi in these things, and I'm okay with that. I love the fact that you had to sit beside your friend or your enemy and battle them or to play together, which was really awesome. Really brought that camaraderie together when you guys were playing games. So now that you can do it online, it makes it a lot easier and a lot less messy with wires. So guys, I really appreciate you guys stopping in and taking a look at my buying guide. I hope that I've answered some questions if you guys have had any. Please, if you guys got any questions, let me know down in the comments below. Let me know if there's something that I didn't cover on here that you want to know about. You know, let me know. Are you guys collecting for the Game Boy? What's some of your favorite games that you have for the Game Boy? You know, these are just kind of my go-tos, you know, some of my favorites, but I'd love to hear what your guys are. So, guys, until next time, game on.